So I'm going to introduce Sam Lai, who is a partner of G2B Ventures that actually developed the Sequoia House, and who's also an independent appraiser. And he and I are going to chat about some questions that real estate professionals have about appraisers and what is an appraisal.
Great.
Green appraisal. Cool. In conversations I've had with different real estate professionals, the whole question about green appraisal designations and, what is a green appraisal has come up. Should we talk about, what that means in today's market?
The reality is right now there's really no such thing as a green appraiser. A green appraiser is simply similar to a waterfront appraiser, an appraiser that's familiar with doing a waterfront property. So as of yet, there are some certifications for green appraisers, but essentially it's an appraiser that's familiar with green properties.
So then if an appraiser doesn't have the designation but has continuing education clock hours, is that the same thing for, is that the same thing?
A green appraiser is an appraiser that's experienced in green properties. There are some certifications that are available that provide objective proof that you've taken classes and courses in the area. However, USPAP, Uniform Standards of Appraisal Practices, require that all appraisers are familiar or qualified to perform an appraisal on the property that they are assigned to.
Got it. And so this is interesting because at the national level, I understand that there is some green legislation being proposed for appraisers. They've even talked about higher credentials being required, when in fact you and I both know it's really not higher credentials, it's simply an understanding of what it takes to value an energy efficient or green home and to understand what those components are and be able to identify them.
That's correct. USPAP already covers experience in an area for a property that you're appraising. So essentially it's a law that is giving words, or it's more semantics
Yeah.
around or giving language to specifically one specific property type.
And then just so that the real estate professionals are aware, there was some legislation that was done at the state level, proposed, where it was proposed to mandate education for all appraisers, commercial and residential, for green buildings. Actually, that proposed legislation sat in committee and never went anywhere, but I think what we're seeing at both the national and the state level is a concern that appraisers are not educated in this growing market. When we've got almost 40% of new construction single-family permits in Seattle being green certified, we have to have some education, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's what the response is.
Great.
Yeah.
So we're in this beautiful house, the Sequoia House, that sold in 1 week, and G2B had it was a remodel. It gained, I believe, Built Green Level 4 on the new King Snohomish checklist.
That's correct.
Remodel checklist. And I thought it would be an interesting aspect to look at energy performance scores because this house performed amazingly well after the initial one.
That's correct.
So with the energy performance score, I've had some real estate professionals, and in fact there's been quite a resistance to the whole concept of energy performance scoring by real estate professionals. Can you address EPS from the valuation perspective, how it may improve a value?
Absolutely. Part of the difficulty with green valuation is quality in the past may be based on county assessor data that basically says average quality construction, good quality of construction, excellent, luxury. Whereas as of yet, there are green designations which are localized. For example, there's Built Green certifications. This house is a Built Green Level 4 certified home. But in addition to that, in order to avoid greenwashing, which is essentially saying something that a house is really green when it really isn't, is having an EPS score, an energy performance score, to back up the actual performance of the score. So you actually have objective data about how the house is actually going to perform. It's very important for appraisers to have objective data because there's already enough nuanced subjective calls that we have to make as professionals that if we have something objective saying this house is more efficient, then we can actually put our weight down on some real data. So it's actually helpful for appraisers to have more information.
Do you believe that this will ultimately translate in higher values for homes with strong EPS scores?
I believe it's the beginning of the information that we need as an industry in order to do a better job in valuation. It's also important because there's so much greenwashing that's going on that there's a lot of skepticism about the quality of green properties. Well, with the EPS, there's actually a third-party verification that the house will actually perform better, similar to a miles per gallon in a car. Of course, the car industry was extremely reluctant to post miles per gallon, saying that it was going to be cumbersome, it was going to be difficult, but in the end, it held the industry accountable. So really, consumers are the ones that are going to benefit from the EPS scoring. So that way, there's more information for consumers to make a knowledgeable choice about the largest investment they're going to make in their life.
Absolutely.
So I think it's important for consumers, and it's also important for appraisers. In classes, talking to other appraisers, we desire that information. There isn't enough information out there. So the more information we can have, the better job we can do for the industry.
One other question I thought that we should also handle is the whole aspect of quantifying into value energy efficiency and water conservation. Again, because these seem to be aspects that consumers are recognizing as important to them. And again, so from the real estate professional's perspective, they want, I think, understanding how that can then be quantified into value would be a good thing for us to address.
Sure. Capitalization on the savings based on the efficiency of a house, the way a house uses water or energy, as of yet is not a sole basis for valuation. It lends to the quality of a property and the way in which it performs. However, the market sales comparison approach, which is the approach that, of course, all residential real estate professionals understand, will continue to be the main valuation method across the board. However, if you do have objective data to be able to capitalize on the actual savings in the way a house performs, you can actually utilize the income approach as backup to the evidence that you already have available in terms of the market sales comparison approach. So there's three legs of a stool. There's a cost approach, how much it costs to buy land and build a property. There's a sales comparison approach, which is the weighted approach. And there's also the income approach that we can use as another leg of that stool. So it's basically giving appraisers another leg of a stool, so that way their valuation feels more solid and more backed up with objective data.
So for instance, if we could demonstrate data through analyzing the multiple listing service, say on Energy Star homes, that we could start to demonstrate that prices, buyers were paying a higher price for those homes. Ultimately, then that would lead the appraisers to give them a reason to make an adjustment.
Sure.
Yep.
So appraisers are market followers. We analyze what the market does and we don't push it in any direction, of course. As the market begins to recognize the value of energy efficiency and recognize that Energy Star homes actually provide housing at a lower cost, as the market reacts to that, appraisers will also be able to begin to react to that as well, especially when you have metrics such as the EPS score or Energy Star certification. For example, this house, the EPS scoring, the pre and the post EPS score, we started with a house that was about 1,000 square feet of finished living area. And when we were done with it, we pretty much doubled the square feet of the house while cutting the energy usage of the house in half. So essentially what we've done is, with the EPS score, it backs up the performance of the house.
Okay, Sam, so one of the questions that is asked by real estate professionals representing developers and builders, why should their clients go to the higher levels of built green if, in fact, they may not see that in the valuation on the appraisal side?
Well, the reality is the market actually is giving a premium to green properties. The challenge is whether or not the appraiser has the right tools or the right evidence to be able to lend credibility to their report. The challenge is frequently based on a lack of available evidence. Similarly to a waterfront property, if sales are scarce, the appraiser may not be able to find any sales within the last 12 months, for example. But with waterfront properties, all appraisers understand that we need to keep on going farther and farther back in order to find some sort of evidence. Similar to a deep green house, you just need to find the evidence and be able to see whether or not there is a market reaction in a specific market. Again, sometimes a house may be overbuilt for the market that it was developed in, and that's also part of the problem, is that in any kind of development project, one of the risks is for a developer to overbuild in quality or in terms of green.
So real estate professionals can help appraisers, though, in this by obviously when they understand green features and the benefits and can represent and communicate that clearly through, by supplying plans and specifications and the checklists to the appraiser, that cuts down on their work and their research.
Absolutely. Now, I think one of the most important things for agents to be able to provide the appraiser with is if they have already done research in terms of the premiums associated with green properties in a specific market area, they've already done the work, they can pass that information on to the appraiser. The appraiser still has to make the call as to whether or not the information is valid. However, the agent should know more about that property than the appraiser is going to be able to know when they're doing their preliminary research. For example, today I was making a call to a listing agent to find out the certification level of a house in Seattle that was listed as built green. However, I didn't know whether or not it was just 3-star or 4-star or 5-star, and it really makes a difference in terms of my ability to do good research before I go and see the property. So it's important for the agent to know what we're looking at.
Excellent. I think that's a good point to finish the FAQs. Thanks, Sam.